Welcome back with me, Melissa Ong. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim's recent visit to Türkiye has renewed attention on relations between Malaysia and Türkiye. The focus has been on defence cooperation and what both sides stand to gain. But beyond the headlines, this reflects a wider shift. Countries like Malaysia and Türkiye are increasingly using diplomacy and defence partnerships to navigate a more uncertain global environment. Now, joining us is CHONG, KEAT, Foreign Affairs, Security and Strategy Analyst. Collins, thanks for joining us. I'd like to begin here. How would you describe the current state of defence cooperation between Malaysia and Türkiye? What stands out most about the relationship today?
Well, definitely it's growing. We have seen how the changing security environment in the region, has compelled both powers, especially Malaysia, to seek deeper fallback options, friend-sharing efforts with increased defense diplomatic efforts. And Turkey is a natural partner. We have seen how, the rapport in the personal leadership and trust between both leaders have been encouraging. And he has moved from this transaction of buying to a more structured strategic cooperation, especially on defense. And key one of the key essence will be, of course, on maritime cooperation. It's one of the most visible anchor right now. Of course, during the visit, we have seen how these different mechanisms in place with the signing of different agreements, especially also on the setting up of this high-level strategic cooperation council. This is pertinent in terms of enhancing closer defense industry collaboration, moving beyond purchasing alone. We have seen how the dependence on Turkey has also is also becoming a more important factor for Malaysia now. We have seen how the foreign policy of Turkey, the strength in terms of defense, aerospace, and especially in terms of the drone capacity, which is now needed by Malaysia. And of course, Turkey has also been relying a lot on Malaysia's growing strength in terms of high-tech capacity, on semiconductors, on chips, on critical resources. So this is one of the it's a multifactorial agreement. It's a multifactorial relations, and it is of great importance to Malaysia in terms of navigating this complex security environment, especially in Southeast Asia, especially with regards to facing different challenges, also including on the threats coming from South China Sea.
Now, why is this cooperation becoming more relevant now? I know you mentioned earlier about the oncoming threats and etc. But given today's global and regional security challenges, why is this important?
Well, we have seen now the increased volume and depth of the grey zone threats that we have faced, especially in Southeast Asia. With regards to maritime coercion, drone warfare. Of course, also on cyber warfare and the new kinetic warfare. So these proven capacity and technologies from Turkey in terms of UAVs, sensors, and all that. So this is very much needed, especially also to improve on our ISR capacity. This is also one of the gaps that we're looking deeply into, and of course, also this is also part of the broader geopolitical power play. And why Turkey is being chosen is beyond conventional prizes or the close relations alone. It is only also because of strategic autonomy. We have seen how Turkey is one of the few countries that has built this sovereign and autonomous defense ecosystem, beyond these limitations of sanctions pressure. So it has its own designs, tests, deployments on drones, on sensors, on naval platforms. So this gives this privilege to Malaysia to have this access to a partner that's not being held hostage to sanctions pressure from the West. And this is what is needed by Malaysia to navigate this complex ecosystem. And and Turkey's system has been proven in different countries, including Syria and Libya and different places. So, and this is important for Malaysia, and also the willingness to share and to co-produce and to have these ripple effects beyond purchasing alone. We have these local assembly lines, technological absorptions, transfer of knowledge and expertise. These are all needed in the long-term projection, and of course also this is one of the main factors that Malaysia is looking into to build up a wider basket, beyond the limitations of being tied into this rivalry between the West and China, and this is what is needed by Malaysia for now.
Now, that's what you're talking about, Malaysia's perspective, what the real strategic gains from working closely with Turkey on defence. Now, is this still mainly about defence industry cooperation, or are we seeing signs of a deeper strategic alignment between the two countries, Collins?
Well, we are still very much aligned to our own mantra of non-alignment. We have our own autonomy in terms of our foreign policy. Of course, this has been stressed upon, very highly by our current leadership. And of course, this is beyond, conventional alliance alone. We have not indicated any movement towards or any tilt towards a real or full-blown alliance with any particular country. But this is what is needed to fill some gaps that we have here. As I've stated, our biggest security challenge is not from conventional firepower alone, but it's from situational awareness in terms of maritime domain awareness. We are a maritime nation, and we need to have assets and infrastructures that can be at the front line in terms of creating greater deterrence, and of course also what we call as this visibility gap in terms of what we need to stay at the front line. And of course, with these new challenges coming from South China Sea, we have increased gray zone maritime and conflicts, and but yet we have also gaps in terms of limited maritime domain awareness capacity and reliance on outdated infrastructure, radar coverage and all that. So this is where the capacities, resources from Turkey is critical, and especially in the domain of ISR, what we call as the capacity of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So this is what we have seen the need for us to enhance our defense diplomacy and our defense ties with Turkey in the long run, but also being seen as a message to ASEAN, to China and the US, especially to China, that we have the capacity now to increase our own deterrence efficacy, but stopping short of giving any kind of misplaced messages that or any indication of an arms race, but we are simply trying to bolster our own defensive capacity and our own deterrence measure. And Turkey is the natural choice for Malaysia given our past foreign policy alignments.
Well, thank you, Collins, for that in-depth perspective and taking time to be on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.